Only one Tom, though. That's it. No more than that. I can't deal with more Toms than one.
It's in the contract.
All kinds of tomfoolery.
I know, right?
My mother.
Okay, here goes then. We have liftoff.
Current Geek.
I'm going to mute my phone through the computer. Okay, here we go. It begins. Whoop, turn that up. In 3, 2, 1.
I have
Current Geek!
Current Geek! Aha.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Current Geek. This is Current Geek, the weekly proceedings of the meetings of the Frog Pants All-Stars, geeks of the world and you, to keep you current on all things that matter most. I'm Scott Johnson. That's Tom Merritt. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Scott Johnson, and happy Halloween.
Thanks,
for
man.
those who celebrate it.
Yeah, you had texted me earlier and said, hey, are we doing costumes? And it occurred to me that the only costume I have this year is a giant pirate hat that doesn't work with headphones, so no good for me, man. No good for me. Are you going out later? Are you partying? Are you doing anything fun?
No, I wore a lab coat on Daily Tech News Show, and I just needed to know if I needed to put it back on. That's the only reason I texted you.
Well, good. Are you going to wait by the door and give kids giant full-size candy bars? What's your plan?
I turned off the porch light already.
It's still daylight outside.
Yeah, just in case.
My West Coast friends are the best.
Now, we actually bought candy, and we were all set, and we were ready last year, and nobody ever came.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, it's the kind of neighborhood. It's a nice neighborhood, but it's the kind of neighborhood where they do the everybody come over to the church for the trick or treating, and that way it's safe, and they're not walking around on the streets.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Well, in the hellscape that is LA, I think I understand. Joining us, we have guests, and I'd like to bring them on in. Let's start with one Hammond Chamberlain, co-host of the Grumpy Cast and many other cool things, a great member of this community. Hammond, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Scott.
It's good to have you, dude. In fact, your name came up, and it should have before now, but your name came up because Tom was on one of your shows. And he said, You know what? Hammond would be a really good guest on here. And I went, well, of course he would. What are we thinking? Let's get him in here.
That's great. I appreciate that. I'm glad Tom's been on. He's been on twice now, and the next one comes up on Sunday, so I'm really excited.
It's a hell of a show. Also joining us, a voice from the past, former co-host of mine for a show we called The Creep. It was a StarCraft show. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Huff in the house.
Hello.
We call you B Huff. Remember that?
B Huff, yes.
Yeah,
because, I'm a rapper and from the hood.
All that stuff.
Oh, you're from my neighborhood.
Yeah, I live across the street from Tom. So
yeah, it's perfect. Well, welcome to the show. It's good to have you both here. Let's dive right in to the top stuff.
Herbert Hoover, Secretary of Commerce in 1922, finds infant radio facilitates news gathering, as do many others in high public office.
Tom, what do we got?
Well, Dee Basinge kicks us off with a submission to the Current Geek subreddit, and I encourage people to get in there and vote. It really does help me choose what ends up here, what you vote for at the Current Geek at currentgeek.reddit.com. Nice. Dee Basinge submitted the news that Marvel Studios announced a 9-film Phase 3 through 2019. 2019, that's 5 years of films. Here you go. In 2016, we'll see Captain America Civil War featuring Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, followed by November's Doctor Strange, not yet officially cast, Cumbernuts. Summer of 2017 is Guardians of the Galaxy 2, followed by Thor Ragnarok with the return of Tom Hiddleston as Loki. And then in November, Black Panther featuring Chadwick Boseman. Summer 2018 is Avengers Infinity War Part 1. They're breaking it into 2 parts. And Captain Marvel with a yet uncast Carol Danvers, followed by the Inhumans in November. And finally, the last one they announced, May 3rd, 2019, we'll all be rolling our wheelchairs into Avengers Infinity War Part 2.
And there's a lot of talk that by the time we finally roll around to Part 2, we will have a very different cast of actors playing these parts at least in some significant ways, which we can get into in a second if we want to. But it's a that's a pretty hairy lineup for sure. Hammond, you excited about Marvel movies in general? And does this excite you to know that there are this many in front of you now?
I have really enjoyed the movies up to this point, but I'm starting to feel like I'm being kind of put into a meat grinder, formulaic kind of experience with them. They're starting to kind of have the same, the bad guys have the thing, we get the thing, they get the thing back, we fight for the thing, they send a bunch more people down, we fight all the people, we get the thing back, and then we move on. Yeah,
I was saying this the other day, there's a lot of minions involved in these movies lately, and a lot of sort of faceless either robots or alien creatures or whatever, and they usually contribute to some sort of final fight at the end of the thing. And yeah, they all do seem to have this pattern, but they're really well made. Like, they know how to entertain you. So aren't you kind of all in until they disappoint you and have something crappy go down?
I'm all in because, and I know they're doing something right because my wife likes them, and that's a huge litmus test for geek involvement of the world at large.
Yeah.
And so until she stops liking them, I'm okay with it because that means I get to go see superhero movies in the theater.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting stuff. Brian Huff, how do you feel, man?
I think Guardians of the Galaxy is really what made this exciting for me because they were able to take an IP that most mainstream folks were not familiar with and make it absolutely amazing. And in my opinion, probably the best Marvel movie to date. And I know I'm probably going to get some hate for that, but absolutely love that movie. And it makes you excited for the movies that you may not know enough about the characters. So people getting really excited about Black Panther or the Inhumans, like that is what really won it for me, was that movie. And it makes me excited for pretty much everything they're going to throw at me. And that probably makes me a sucker, but I'm a happy sucker.
Well, I don't think people give you any crap because that movie pretty much universally well received by anyone I've ever talked to, and it did kind of up the stakes and say that they were capable of tackling more obscure content that they have IP ownership of, and that's really good news. The one on this list I'm most excited about, there's a couple, well, all of it really, but if I had to pick one out, I want to see where they go with Black Panther. I like Chadwick Boseman. He was awesome in that Jackie Robinson movie. He was good in that, I had it in the winter draft. Get On Up. He played James Brown. And now he'll be the Black Panther, Tom. That's exciting, man. It's cool.
Yeah.
He's Marvel's Batman, basically, in a lot of ways. Not entirely, but some ways.
I'm tempted to poke a little fun at Hammond and be like, yeah, that's my problem with the Iliad and Shakespeare too. There's always some hero with a central conflict. But I know what you mean, right? It's like you kind of like, all right, it's not just the way, it's not just the story, but it's like these are the same characters now with a couple exceptions like Black Panther. So you got to show me something interesting that is different enough, and that's where Guardians of the Galaxy is my hope for the future as well, that these movies will be entertaining. Is Guardians of the Galaxy could have easily been just like a pale imitation of the Avengers with goofy characters, and it wasn't. It was its own kind of movie. So my hope is that when we see Captain America Civil War, it's not like, oh, here we go with Winter Soldier meets Iron Man 2 again.
Yeah.
They And I think by having Robert Downey Jr. in there and having Civil War, that's what they're trying to do. Whether they can execute it continually is the big question, but they've shown they can so far.
Big Harry.
I think one thing that excites me about Civil War 2 is there's those undercurrents of rumors that it's going to bring in some of the people that are currently not part of the Marvel Universe because of contractual obligations, specifically Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And those rumors are still churning. And if this can open up that door to bring in some folks that are not necessarily under the Disney umbrella right now, that changes a lot of things, not just for the movies, but for Marvel in general, if they can start tapping into some of that stuff they don't have control over the IP currently.
Well, Civil War purists are going to tell you that if you don't have Spider-Man, then you don't have Civil War. And so there is a lot of division on that level. But my impression is this. They paid Iron Man so much money, Robert Downey Jr., I should say, so much money to reprise his role here. No, there is no Iron Man 4 anywhere in this list. I think this is your last Iron Man movie. I also think this is the movie where Captain America ends up not living at the end of it, and we need to call in somebody else, probably Bucky Barnes or whatever. None of these are spoilers. This is all open comic stuff. I don't know if they're going that route or not.
If you haven't read the comic.
Well, I guess that's true. And it's speculation. We don't know what they're doing.
Right.
But if I had to guess, they've gotten pretty good at writing around some of these problems. Avengers 2 will be a real litmus test for this because they're bringing Quicksilver and what's her name?
Scarlet Witch.
Scarlet Witch, thank you, into this thing, who are technically mutants, but we're not, I guess, not calling them that in the movie. We've already had one show up in the X-Men story, so he's not really on loan, but there was a deal cut between Fox and Disney, and I don't know how the arrangement went, but that could be a sign of maybe somehow getting Spider-Man into this mix. But one way or the other, it would at least tell us how they're going to handle some of this creative writing. Ant-Man's not in the Avengers, but he's got his own movie coming up. But if you read those comics, Ant-Man was all up in that Avengers stuff. So they've been able to creatively write around some of these limitations and do okay and get away with it. If they're only going to make one movie called Civil War, My guess is that thing gets cut way down from, the mold. We're not going to have Squirrel Girl in there, for example, and her issue with dealing with Civil War, or all the myriad of other secondary characters in the Marvel Universe. It's going to be a very slimmed down, trimmed down version that's basically going to be the big fight, which is still the crux of the story, but the big fight and the big differences between what Iron Man thinks and what Captain America thinks, and then, hilarity ensues. Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, all this stuff makes me stoked. Whatever. I would rather live in a world where we had too many Marvel movies and not even to mention all the DC stuff coming. I'd rather live in that world than a world where nobody takes that stuff seriously and we never get a good movie.
It'd be the smartest thing in the world for Sony and Fox to agree to loan a few characters to this series in order to get a couple of those characters to come over to their movies, and the fans will flock to go see those Sony versions of the Marvel Universe that maybe they haven't been flocking to in as large of a number.
Good point.
Yeah, had Andrew Garfield stepped out on stage during that announcement, everybody would have gone absolutely nuts, and people would have tuned in to some of the Spider-Man movies if they knew it was going to go the other way around, and they've been struggling to get people to show up for those movies.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of underlying contractual stuff, but on the surface, it seems like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
What isn't Cap essential to Infinity War though?
He is, but
you kind of threw out that he might be gone.
Well, here's the only reason I say that. One is the way Civil War can end that way. Also, it lends to this idea that he wants to get out and direct and doesn't want to do this forever. He's basically been real loud about that. Chris Evans, that is to say, and so. And also that far flung in the future, not that he couldn't play the part, but I just, I think these things get to the point where it's like, all right, we need new blood. So the comics actually
picks up the shield.
Well, they have a way to do it. Bucky Barnes comes back. Winter Soldier has whatever. He takes up the shield. This is all accepted switcheroo that's happened in the comics as it is. And so they
also have Falcon now, right? I mean, that's the current storyline running with the comics, is that Falcon picks the guy who's Falcon picks up the shield. Right?
He's got the shield because Steve Rogers is 1,000 years old and laying in bed or something right now.
Yeah, so you still have his character who is in Winter Soldier just kind of hanging out there right now. They haven't said much about too. So there's potential for that.
So you could see all of those things happen, and they've so far earned my trust as a studio with some of those moves they've made to make things make sense. So I'm not nervous. For whatever reason they've got my trust until they don't. Not that mine's all that important, but they'd have to really crap out for me to be worried moving forward.
What we're saying is don't blow it.
Right.
That's where my question is do we have any predictions over their staying power? Because by 2019, we're going to be older and tastes may have changed and interests may have changed. And I'm just wondering, the quality of the movie might still be the same, but does the audience have the staying power? Because movie-going audiences are kind of fickle.
Well, it's a good point.
Because they just move on to be like, I don't care about superheroes anymore.
Yeah, are you going to have 12-years that are 22 now and aren't into it anymore? Are they going to age out of it or hipster out of it, or not think?
Or
is
it James Bond, where it just lives forever? You just keep changing actors.
Could be.
And it's a good point. I just think that we all hold the first Star Wars trilogy dear in our hearts because that's what was the taste when we were younger. And the kids that came after us, that other trilogy that I pretend doesn't exist, that's the Star Wars they know. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if that's the way it's going to be with these.
Well, I think there's enough stylistically that it can still be the same source material, but it's all in how you present it potentially. I mean, going back to the James Bond example, the James Bond that we watch now is not the type of James Bond movie that we watched 20, 30 years ago. There's no reason why they can't do that now. Will they do that between now and 2019? I don't know, but I could see them with all the source material they have, bring in a different director, bring in different actors, and just have a different gloss over the same source material.
Yeah, and they don't have to keep.
Did it with Guardians, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, totally. And they don't have to keep retelling the origin stories over and over. This is where I think Hollywood does get in trouble. We don't need to see Batman watch his parents get shot another time. And I think it's true of these Marvel characters as well. We get it. Spider-Man got bit by a spider. He's now got these powers. I think we are past that point. And if they keep it rolling like this, where it's literally 2 or 3 movies a year, and that remains profitable, well, then they never have to tell the origin again. We're just in for the win. And it is like James Bond in that we just know that he's a suave dude in a suit who says funny things when he's got a drink in his hand and offs bad guys and sleeps with 3 ladies at least every movie.
And they're bringing the old comics back. Like if you're doing a lot of stuff, Civil War, the Infinity Gauntlet, Hulk Wars, all of those old series that we kind of grew up on, there's probably a reason why those are coming back in 2015. If they can start to get this generation of youth into those stories and they're not retro and it's more something that they're familiar with, it makes it easier to pull from that source material later.
Agreed. Good stuff.
All right. Let's move on to Urine, one of my least favorite handles on our subreddit.
What?
Pointing out that, good story though, the Verizon wireless customers are being tracked with the unique identifier header added to each web request sent through your wireless network. UIDH is used to help advertisers better target mobile ads. Verizon claims they don't use the IDs to create customer profiles. They keep users anonymous. They even change the IDs after a set period of time, so you can't track them over time. And users can opt out of the program by visiting vzw.com/myprivacy. However, UIDHs will still be attached to web requests even if you opt out. They just won't be tracked anymore. The IDs stay in the system. Verizon says users who opt out will not have any information associated with those ID numbers. They promise. And AT&T has a similar program to this. So if you want to check to see if you're on your mobile device and you're on the wireless network, not on Wi-Fi, you can go to lessonlearned.org/sniff from your phone, and you can see that. You can see your ID, your UIDH.
So what is the value to them? Is it just location data? Is it something else?
Well, what's the value to them is they have this ID that is anonymously tracked and says this person went to this site, looked at this search term, so we can serve them this ad, and likely it would be a more relevant ad to you because it would be closer to your interests.
Okay. So the same thing everybody's doing, but they just haven't been very upfront about it existing.
The problem with it is they're putting it in your URL. This is not a cookie set on the client side. This goes to any website you visit, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So now the Verizon says, we don't track anything. What about that website you visited? They got that UID too. Now they can track it. They can collate it. They can use
good point.
it. It's just broadcast out onto the open web.
Yeah, there's been a lot of effort recently, especially on Google's side, put into cookieless tracking and coming up with ways to identify people that gets around those things. A lot of cross-referencing. And one of the things I think people don't realize is like when you look at the OAuth stuff that goes on login and Facebook login with Twitter, they use that information not because that information itself is valuable, but when you can figure out a way to correlate, say, I know you're logged in Facebook and I have this UID attached, I can start cross-referencing that information to get a better idea about you demographically without explicitly tracking you through the Verizon system, for example.
So, Tam, does this make you nervous as a user of either of those networks?
It kind of does, but at the same time, privacy is kind of a fleeting item for me. I mean, we're on camera all the time when we drive. Our credit cards track where we go shopping. They know our buying patterns. Everything we do is tracked in some way. So at some point, the line between what we think is privacy and what we want as privacy are going to have to change because the definition of that kind of that word is going to change over time because of all the tracking that's just built into our regular lives.
Well, I kind of agree, except I wish they were just upfront about some of this stuff. So to me, it's fine if they're doing a thing like that. And we may have issues with how they're doing it, like the way Tom described it. I don't like that it's just a URL variable. I mean, that's just kind of hideous and cheap and lazy. But aside from that, it'd be nice if we were told these things. It didn't have to find them out by accident or because somebody's paying attention or whatever. I feel like transparency will help me trust these companies, even though they're going to take my data, they're going to track my buying patterns, they're going to do all those things. But at least tell me you are, and then tell me what you're going to do with it, and then let me decide if I want to be with you.
And I think the thing that really bothers me, because I almost entirely agree with Hammond in the broad sense of like people get over concerned with privacy in an age where we haven't quite learned which privacy is the privacy we need to worry about yet. And maybe this isn't the privacy we need to worry about because you're not using encrypted connections half the time, people. You're not using SSH when you should. There are lots of things you really should be worried about more than cookies. But this isn't cookies. What bothers me is that Verizon is changing the way the internet is supposed to work. Yeah. They're saying, oh, you're using our network? Well, we're going to attach a tracking ID to you. And that's not okay.
No. It's almost...
Yeah, go ahead.
It's almost one step away from, I think when like the layperson listens to this, it's one step away from what they've heard about how the NSA has been doing it, right? It's one step away from that piece in the middle that you don't have control over that's not on your computer. It's just recoding how the bits and bytes are sent across the internet. And that scares people.
Yeah,
Like,
don't mess with the way the internet works because you want to track people. And that's why when you opt out, Verizon says, well, the ID stays there because they've messed with the way the internet works. That's not okay.
Yeah.
I think it's also about the end result too. I mean, Scott, you kind of glossed over that part, but it's interesting because if you were to have the same conversation with somebody, but it was improving their shopping experience on Amazon, people have a less visceral reaction to it because in that scenario, it's benefiting them. But as soon as you put in advertising and marketing, it's a dirty word and it scares people. So they're a little bit more protective of their privacy, not because of the methods being used as much, but also because of the end result and what's being used for. It's okay if you invade my privacy to make my internet experience better, but it's not okay if you do it so that person can make money or target me with
and
an
part of that is they already have a good track record of that, right? So like AT&T and Verizon are already sort of the devil for everybody because they're the people we have to pay a bunch of money to per month. They don't give us unlimited data on our phones. We're not sure we get a good connection at home when we buy their DSL. Like they're already in this adversarial position, and then doing things on top of that, people are going to have that kind of reaction. Somebody who you already like, maybe it's Google, maybe it's Amazon, maybe it's whoever, but they kind of have a little bit more leeway and they've already kind of made your life better. Man, I sure love Prime and I love that it suggests things for me to buy that I, might be related to what I purchased last week. And we don't see those as infractions because the service we're getting is so good, or in theory it's that good. And, when they slip up, then they have to fight that same battle. But that's what this is what this feels like to me, is that we already don't trust our carriers. And now we hear a thing and we go, well, I trust you even less.
Hey, Scott, I think you actually hit something very important as far as all of those services we get, Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, is they actually feel like they're pitting themselves against us as consumers and users. And if there was some way they could spin that so they could not be our enemies and work with us to provide these experiences, I think that might help across the board. And the company that can do that would probably make a fortune just because they feel like they're on the client side.
I mean, it's essentially Google, right? Like we've become the product on the Google side, and that's what Google has done. We're providing this amazing service, and the more things that you do and the more inlets into your life you give us, the better experience and the more products we can build for you. Oh, and by the way, we're going to make some money off that by selling it to advertisers. I think that's kind of the threat of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sadly. All right.
On to S. Snapier, who tipped us off that a special downloadable version of Star Wars TIE Fighter and Star Wars TIE Fighter Defender of the Empire in one bundle, and another bundle with Star Wars X-Wing Collector CD-ROM and both Tour of Duty expansions Imperial Pursuit and B-Wing in a second bundle are available on Good Old Games for $10 for each bundle.
No brainer. That game is great. I used to play TIE Fighter until my face was blue, and it's maybe the best, still to this day, the best flight sim in space that I ever played. And I would kill for like a total facelift because I think it's real ugly now. But man, in the day, anybody else play this back in the day?
This actually makes me sad,
Yeah.
like that it's been this long, not just to bring this back, but we haven't had anything that even comes close to touching this game.
Yeah, it's true. It's amazing.
All those LucasArts games old LucasArts games have a real special place in my heart. Like that one that was called Afterlife. It was kind of a Sim City, except you were running heaven and hell.
Oh, I don't remember this. That sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, all those early LucasArts games are just amazing, and they really were cutting edge for the time. And you're running on these rinky-dink machines now, but they were so much fun.
Well, I'm glad that it's not the only game too. There's some other stuff that showed up from LucasArts, and that's good. So head on over to Good Old Games and spend hardly anything for some pretty rad PC memories.
That has turned into a really, really cool site.
I agree.
I remember when Good Old Games launched, they were talking to us at Buzz Out Loud, and they had their hearts in the right place, but it was really hard to get people to cooperate and let them release the games that they wanted to release. But they stuck it out, man, and they persevered, and they've got an amazing service now. Really cool.
Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, also there for $6. Totally worth playing, even though, I mean, even graphically it's retro enough to feel okay. But yeah, if you haven't been to Good Old Games in a while, holy crap, everything's good on there. All fun and new stuff too.
And everything's old, and everything's games.
Yeah, sure, why not?
It's good. It's old. It's games. That's what it says in the tin.
That's right.
Diva Singe let us know that the FTC is suing AT&T for throttling speeds of its unlimited mobile data consumers. FTC Chairwoman Edith Ramirez said the issue here is simple: unlimited means unlimited. AT&T issued a strongly worded statement saying, "We have been completely transparent with customers since the very beginning." They told people by text message and by several emails that, at a certain point that their usage would be throttled down. And they said, quote, "The FTC's allegations are baseless and have nothing to do with the substance of our network management program."
Which
like
is,
we were just talking about not being able to trust AT&T and Verizon.
right. I mean, again, this is just a transparency thing, isn't it, Tom? Like
you've got two sides saying
Nailed it.
right? The FTC is saying, we're suing you because you're using the term unlimited while at the same time telling people that at a certain point you're going to slow down their connection, and that's a limit. You can't call that unlimited. And AT&T's like, no. We get to call that unlimited because we told them that what unlimited meant would be this, and so we told them.
So if it's free,
so we told them.
Yeah. If I told a girlfriend in high school I was taking her to a fancy restaurant on our date, but took her to McDonald's, I mean, it's not my fault that
No. Here's the analogy. You tell your prom date you're taking her to a fancy restaurant. You take her there for a drink, and then you say, "That's as much as I can afford at the fancy restaurant. We're finishing at McDonald's."
Yeah, you've drunk too much.
I told you before I could only spend $40 at the fancy restaurant, and you ordered a $20 drink, so did I. So you should have known this was coming.
Yeah, but the difference is the boyfriend can say it in about a sentence or two in very understandable terms. AT&T tells us in a giant EULA from hell that's 8-9 pages long.
I want that to become a thing now, is that people going to prom have to give each other EULAs.
That would be awesome. Just pull out
Sign
like
the-
old scroll, like back in medieval times. It just rolls out.
I don't know how I feel about a date being your end user. Like, something about that's weird.
Can't wait to get started. Here, sign this. By entering my car, you agree to the terms.
Wow.
Just click accept.
There's something in that. We should think about that, like a comic or a book or something.
I was worried you were suggesting a business.
No, there's an idea in there somewhere. I don't know what it is, but
I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere in the valley there's somebody working on that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's the way it works. Tell me about what Rite Aid and CVS and others are doing.
Oh, you know.
Yeah, I do know.
You don't need me to tell you. For those who haven't been following the Apple Pay current C controversy, though, let me get you up to speed. Rite Aid, CVS, Apple Pay. I'm going to make it as simple as I can. Both pharmacies are part of an exchange called Merchant Consumer Exchange, which instead of MCE prefers to go by the letters MCX because X's are cool. That organization has a mobile payment system in the works. It's not launched yet. It's in pilot called Current C, the word current and then C. The pharmacies shut down their NFC systems over the weekend, meaning they no longer take Apple Pay or Google Wallet or any other NFC system. People got generally outraged at that, spread some truths and some not truths. MCX took to their blog to defend themselves against the not truths. And well, they were right on the blog, may have implied that the cloud is safer than your phone, because if your phone gets stolen, your information gets stolen, but the cloud won't get stolen. And then the next day, a database of emails from the MCX servers was attacked and stolen.
That was like a giant target. Why would you even say that?
Exactly. Just don't say that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now it's in fits and skirmishes, news coming out about MCX and what their policies may or may not be. They've given a lot of really mushy-mouthed answers about exclusivity, etc. Rite Aid and CVS seem to be trying to play by the rules, which is that you can only use currency if you offer currency. And so in advance of offering it, they're just like, we don't want people to get used to NFC. Let's shut it off. Whereas a grocery store chain called Meijer started to actually offer currency, or is a member of currency, but is continuing to take Apple Pay and Google Wallet, because it's not just a grocery chain, it's also a gas station, and they want to keep that PayPass thing going. Yeah. So when they asked the merchant exchange people about it, they're like, they are welcome to use currency at some point, and they just don't want to admit that they're trying to force exclusivity.
Well, okay, again, like Meijer, in my opinion, is doing what they should all be doing, which is, why would you limit one customer base that potentially...
But the MCX terms say that if you're offering currency, you've got to offer only currency, because they want to juice the numbers up and make people use currency.
Yeah, and see, this is the problem. You can't make people do things. Like my experience has been, that's a rough road to go down, especially when it comes to something where obviously you don't need to. Obviously alternatives exist, and all of them are simpler, easier, and more end-user friendly on both Google Wallet.
I want to let Brian and Hammond talk, but just to advance the argument down towards the end faster, the reason currency is doing this is because currency was developed before Apple Pay was pervasive, and when Google Wallet was still it was very young and not on very many phones, they thought this will go faster because everybody can use it. You don't have to get a phone with NFC. And the problem they're running into is they've taken too long to launch it.
Yeah.
Well, it's also about the money, right? I mean, this is all about cutting out those transaction fees. That's really the big thing behind it. And they're trying to find that balance because
that's why they want their own system. Exactly.
Yeah, this doesn't involve the credit card companies at all. So if I can get all my end users using this service, I can save that 2, 3, 4, whatever the percentage is, depending on the card, on every single transaction. Now, it's a little myopic because you forget like how many users am I going to lose in the meantime because they're like, oh, I'm not going to shop there because I can't use the easiest system, or your system will inevitably be harder. So I'm not going to be able to do that because I have to sign up and attach my bank account. They get so tunnel visioned on look at the money that we can save that they forget about the rest of that. And every time a situation like this has ever come up in the market, it always fails miserably when you try to force exclusivity to try to make some money on the back end.
Yeah. What do you say, Hammond? What do you think?
I'm kind of old school. I don't use my phone to pay for anything. I use cash a lot. I don't have a credit card that I carry around with me. I have a debit card, to pay for gas. But this is all still very new and kind of foreign to me. And I feel very much like the grumpy old man with this because I'm not on board yet, and I'm waiting for it to kind of shake out and prove to be something stable before I kind of jump in.
It probably will. And just imagine, it's funny you say that, because just imagine the first, let's call him 75-year-old man that saw the first credit card when that first happened. Just imagine what that looked like to him and how that just seemed insane. Like that just couldn't work. The nice thing about this particular move, the NFC stuff, is that it's a transitionatory thing. It's not a word. Transitionary is what I meant to say. You can go from credit cards to still credit cards. Those companies are still there. Nobody has to go solvent. Nobody has to go out of business. It's just a new delivery mechanism that's convenient, fast, takes advantage of technologies that we couldn't have before. Like it's a good slide into whatever the next base is. And this other MXC, whatever the hell it is, that thing is not it. I don't care how many times you ask me if it's easier to scan a credit card or take a picture of a freaking QR code on my screen. Screw that. Not interested.
Dude, if they launched this in 2012, you're interested. You're in. Okay, you're like,
so.
Wow, I can use this on any phone. It's a little wonky with the QR codes, but this is so much cooler and easier and faster.
Good point.
Just too late.
Good point.
I've never had good luck with QR codes.
No
whatever
one does.
Reason, I can't get it to read anything.
Nobody has.
They're cool if you put it on a poster and it's like, I want to see more about this SpongeBob movie. Click. Oh, that's cool. There's an app I can get.
That's my point exactly.
I only really prefer to deal in gold-backed currencies, but for the purpose of the story, I'm entertaining all.
Yeah, Tom's a Bitcoin guy, so watch out, everybody. Watch out. That's
How's
not
that
true.
Work?
Let's not get into that discussion.
Let's move on to another D. Basinge submitted story instead. Rumor about DC's upcoming Wonder Woman film slated for 2017. According to Bleeding Cool sources, the Wonder Woman film will begin on Paradise Island with the Amazons, origin story for Wonder Woman, in the middle of a power struggle. And then someone arrives asking for help. Diana accompanies him into the world, and it's the 1920s, right after women have won the right to vote. Report goes on to say that a sequel would then be set during World War II, and then it would be the third film in the Wonder Woman trilogy, I suppose, that would have Diana in the present. So essentially, Boardwalk Amazon, followed by Saving Private Diana, concluding with How to Lose an Invisible Jet in 10 Days.
If this is true, this is the best news I've heard come out of the DC announcements. Other than just there's a little fanboy in me that can't wait to see Superman and Batman square off. I know people aren't happy with Zack Snyder, whatever. Forget all that. It's still exciting to me that they're going to approach that venerable comic idea of those two going head to head. But the idea of them putting her in the time, or in the era where she sort of began in comics, is very exciting to me. It's why I love the first Captain America movie. It was a great transition to the modern day one. It's a great idea. I'm all for this. This is good. Anybody else? Opinions? Thoughts?
I think anything DC can do to kind of tug at the nostalgia heartstrings, the better off they are. Because I think that's one area where they've kind of lacked compared to Marvel. Because you hear people come out when they come out with the DC movies, like almost all the gripes are like, "Oh, that's not how I remember it. Why did you do it that way? Superman's costume looks stupid." Like people are focused on the weirdest things when it comes to the DC movies because they tend to be more purist. But Marvel people are like, "Yeah, he doesn't look like Iron Man's suit in that last comic, but who cares? Because he's blowing crap up." Yeah. And so these things that they can do that speak to that audience, I'm all for, because DC has a lot of great stories and a lot of great characters, and it's a shame to see them take a backseat to Marvel in the cinematic side of things. So being able to touch that origin story and do some of this cooler stuff that people that have read the comics and know these characters well can relate to, I'm all for.
I'm excited.
I'm kind of the opinion that the DC universe needs to find some joy in it, because there is no, I mean, the Batman movies, yes, they're dark and grim, and it's, American Psycho meets Batman. I get that. But there should be some happiness and some bright colors and some jokes and some joy, and they should be fun to walk out of and walk into. And I have not gotten that experience yet from that many DC Universe movies.
Well, didn't they come right, Tom? We talked about it on the show. Somebody came out on the DC side and said, we're not interested in jokey movies. We don't want our superhero movies to have the lighthearted feel everybody seems to be begging for, which is an odd thing for them to say, but I don't think you're going to get much of that, Hammond, unfortunately. And I agree with you. I mean, half the reason the Marvel movies are good and they resonate is they're freaking fun and they make you feel like a kid again. And part of that is good humor. Part of that is a lot more color and excitement and not taking itself too seriously and knowing when to take itself seriously. And DC's not quite get their head around how to do that yet. They do it really well, though, in lots of direct-to-DVD animation. Their comics are good. Like, there's plenty there. They have the source material. They just, so far anyway, a little bit bad at execution. Forgetting all the Batman movies, which were great for their different eras, for different reasons, and all of that. But this sort of era now that we're in, that Marvel has sort of established the baseline, DC's got to figure out where they fit. And I don't know where.
Well, I'm not even asking for belly laughs. I'm asking just for, this is going to sound horrible because I don't mean it to be a joke, but I'm just looking for some hope.
Yeah.
Not on his chest. I'm just looking for some hope, because they're really kind of downers.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
Arrow and Flash on the CW, you can have your problems with the CW all you want, but they have that.
I agree.
DC can do it. Mm-hmm. They just haven't done it on the big screen for some reason.
Sure.
Yep.
And
my only problem with the Flash is that the sun never shines. Not the Flash, the Arrow is the sun's never out.
Yeah, the sun is never out on the Arrow. That's true.
Well, they're shooting in Vancouver, man. What are they going to do?
It's cloudy all the time.
Yeah, that's why it all feels like BSG for some reason when they're there. But anyway.
They're all going to come across sparkly vampires and fight.
There you go.
I noticed on the Flash when they shoot in Vancouver too. They're like, I'm like, oh look, that's the Daily Planet from Smallville. Same set.
Nice. Cool. Well, let's move on to Virgins. What? Oh, Virgin Galactic. Sorry.
Oh yeah. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna roll back that transition for a second.
Please.
Partly because I want to point out, I made this observation while you guys were talking, and I almost forgot about it. Wonder Woman's doing a Golden Age movie.
Yeah.
A Silver Age movie, and a modern movie. Marvel can't go Golden Age; they can only go Silver Age.
This is true. Yeah,
that's an interesting thing. Yeah. Anyway, no joke. Very sad news coming from Surprise Truck. The Virgin Galactic Spaceship 2 crashed after suffering a serious anomaly during a test flight over the Mojave Desert. California Highway Patrol reporting one fatality. We believe it's the co-pilot, according to AP. Today was the 55th time Spaceship 2 had flown, 35th time the vehicle had flown on its own, detached from the airplane that carries it airborne, 4th time it had actually fired its rockets, and the first time it fired those rockets using a new polyamide-based rocket fuel, which is a plastic-based fuel, different than the rubber-based fuel it had been using previously.
I was under the impression it was unmanned. I did not know that it had a pilot in it. I may be confusing this with the SpaceX rocket.
There was the Antares rocket over the weekend they hit the self-destruct on because there was a problem with it. That was unmanned.
Oh, that was self-destructed. I didn't know that. All right.
Yeah.
I thought it just popped on the runway and nobody knew why. But it's all of these things are pretty good stark reminders that as far as we've come, and now we've kind of almost privatized a lot of the space industry in a lot of very important ways, and it's all very exciting. Stuff is still volatile and hard and difficult and not just a thing you can just do. You got there are things that have to always happen, and one tiny mistake can just lead to catastrophic results. And I don't think it should stop us or slow us down, but you know,
we don't have it all figured out. I think a lot of people it's easy to look at it and feel like we're doing the same things we were doing, 20, 30 years ago, trying to get, aircraft into space and go to the moon. But like when you privatize something, it's still very, very hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's just also a reminder that exploration and that quest for knowledge and discovery sometimes can be kind of dangerous. And the people that are really passionate about it know that and are willing to take those risks for those discoveries.
Sure. It's when you get in trouble when you start getting so afraid of that you never progress past anywhere.
That's the fear of this when these things happen in a private system, right? Because then the laws can start to keep things from happening. When it's a government-run agency, it's almost like an accepted loss, unfortunately. But like when
stakeholders too.
Yeah, when you look at it from a privatization standpoint, like, oh, there's too many bad things happening. Let's regulate this so it can't happen. And
you don't want
not
that.
to sound callous, but that's why you do 35 test flights.
Sure.
Is that to make sure that if one does explode, it explodes with only the test pilots who knew the risks, who are on board, and you can figure out why before you start carrying passengers on it, which is what Spaceship Two is meant to do.
And I would definitely not call that callous at all. I think that's the way this should be approached. And, I suspect that is how they're approaching it. I haven't heard a lot of the flack or feedback. I'm not seeing people lined up saying ban space projects or anything. Which is good, but
it's just unfortunate to have the Antares and Spaceship Two.
Yeah, it's not a good week.
Problems.
Yeah. You hate that feast or famine way these things go. But before we move on to the pop quiz, a quick note that if you want to get brand new, awesome pint glasses, let's say you like a cold beer. Let's say you like one of those. These are perfect for that. But whatever you're drinking, it's fine. Go check it out. These are Star Wars themed. It's me. I did one of them. It's a Trooper ale that I created, and you can see the art for it at frogpants.com/store. And then you can see John Kovalik, artist of Dork Tower and the Munchkin games. You can see his version, which is Admiral Akbar's. Oh crap, I forgot how we named it.
It's a Trappist ale.
There you go. Thank you. Another ale. Both are available now. They're as a bundle if you want, or separately. There are also prints based on that same art if all you're looking for is the art. Worth checking out over there at frogpants.com/store. And I know that you'll like what you see. All right, it's time for this little piece of business.
America scores and wins.
All right, it's what we like to call on the show the pop quiz. And that's where you two have to answer questions based on areas of your interest.
Edge. Wait. Oh, no.
Oh, oops, not that, no. You are, if you get a question correctly, you hear this. If you get it wrong, you hear, and they're in areas of your interests. This is what we know.
This is a lot of pressure.
Yeah, there is. We're going to start with Hammond, I believe. Hammond, are you ready?
I guess.
All right. Your subject, by the way, let me pull this up over here, is yogurt soda trivia. So that terrible crap you brought with you to Nerdtacular, a bunch of us. Well, you got the good bottle. The rest of us got the rotten bottle.
Sure. I'm telling you, they're all crap. Tom just is a man.
He is.
Is
a
that
nice
yogurt, soda? Or?
No, it's carbonated yogurt soda.
Yeah,
it's soda with some yogurt in it.
It's gross. It's from Afghanistan. It's terrible.
It's the Yoo-hoo of Iran.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that because I hate Yoo-hoo as well.
It's the bleh of the world.
Well, here are your questions, and there are 8 of them, and it starts with this one. In the Middle East, what is yogurt soda called?
I'll
give you the hint is it's a single word. What was that again? What'd you say?
Talk?
You are incorrect.
Doke. It's doke.
He got it. Tom, you're the judge. He's right the second time.
He was only one letter off, and D and T are often transliterated in the same way. We're talking about an entirely different alphabet here. I'm going to give him 2 points.
All right. Did I mention Tom is really weird with the scoring? I meant to mention that in the rules.
No,
this is the only way I'm going to get any points.
Yeah, it's super crazy. All right, next up. In what ancient, no longer existing country was yogurt soda very popular? I feel like this is a trick question, but...
I'm going to say... Macedonia.
You are incorrect. It is Persia, now modern-day Iran and western Afghanistan.
By the way, Macedonia still exists.
Okay,
in fact,
sorry.
there are 2 of them. So you're gonna lose a point on that.
That's fine.
Fair enough.
I earned it.
Next up, the drink's name comes from the Persian word for milking. What is that word?
Doke.
You are incorrect. It is Dushadan. Dushadan.
Right, I'm giving you a point because that was confusing. Like you just said the drink's name, which you got right at question 1.
Oh, good point. Yeah, I would give him a point for that. I would. That's a weird one, Mike. Next one. By 2009, the drink was being referred to as something else. What is it being called since then?
The worst thing ever created?
Close. Is that your actual answer?
I don't know. I'm
Minted yogurt drink is the correct answer.
Obviously not in English.
No. Next up, what vegetable is sometimes added to yogurt soda to give it more crunch? Oh, jeez.
celery.
You're so close. Cucumbers is the answer.
Oh, yeah. No, that would make sense. Yogurt cucumber.
Yeah, it's a kind of a Euro kind of thing, right? Where's your lamb's meat? Let's see. Next up, flavor is often added to yogurt soda. What is it? What flavor is often added?
Salt.
You are incorrect. The hint came earlier. It is mint. Mint is the correct answer.
Oh, yeah. You're going to lose a quarter point for not paying attention to give away the answer.
All right, fair enough. In what year is there a written record describing yogurt soda as, quote, cold drink made with curdled milk, seasonings, and water, unquote? In what year?
That's the weirdest question.
It is really weird. That's really weird.
I'm going to say 1912.
Oh, you were close by almost 1,000 years. Let's see. Where are we?
I almost want to throw it to Brian for like before or after.
Yeah, no doubt. Those were fun.
I'm going to go with
night.
before.
Yeah. Well, you would be incorrect. It's 1886 is the correct answer. Or would you say 1920? Then it was before.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
That's why Tom's in charge of scoring.
Well, you get nothing for that. So
No, he gets a point for that.
Oh, does he? Okay. Finally, who drank a ton of yogurt soda with reckless abandon in Urtacular 2012 and lived to tell the tale?
That would be one Tom Merritt.
You are correct. Nicely done.
You get a point for that. You would have lost like 10 if you had. I'm just saying.
I knew he was going to do it too, because the year before he took Clamato in the same fashion, just pounded that Clamato down like some kind of crazy person.
I was the guy in high school who would drink anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that kind of guy. I didn't know too many of them.
Hey, don't be surprised if you get a box from Mendoza filled with yogurt soda and black licorice.
That's right. Watch for
I
that.
love black licorice. Yogurt soda was fine. I didn't have a problem.
I don't know if yogurt soda and fine have ever been used in the same sentence before.
Not by me.
You just haven't been to Persia, my friend.
I'm sorry. That's right.
All right, Brian Huff, here are your questions.
All right.
It is Lego trivia. Legos. He's a big Lego fan.
Which means I have a lot of pressure here.
That's all right. Did you get my picture or my print yet? Did that arrive yet?
Yes, I did.
Oh, good. How'd it look? How's everything look?
It's amazing.
Oh, good. I love making that. Here's your first question. In what year were Lego minifigures introduced?
Lego minifigures.
Yeah.
Oh man.
If you get it within 2 years on either side of this year answer,
1978.
you are dead right on. 78.
Wow.
Nicely done. Jeez.
I like Legos. Sorry.
That's a 2-pointer right there.
Next up, approximately how many Lego bricks are made per year? Oh my gosh, this is huge.
Oh man.
I'm freaked out by this answer.
Oh, I don't know. Like 25 million?
You are wrong. It is 19 billion.
Oh God.
Billion. That's crazy to me.
That's a lot of plastic.
Yeah, that's a Lego set for every kid in the world plus some. Like that's a ton of Legos. My gosh. All right. What color of hair is not available on regular Lego minifigs?
What color hair is not available on?
Like you got brunettes and redheads.
Oh, blondes.
You think it's blonde you can't get? Well, let's find out if you're right. You are correct. It is blondes.
I'm going to give you a 1.5 points because you could have just gone like, you can't get fuchsia. Or
There's no orange.
But you were precisely correct.
Blonde, by the way, side note, is only featured in licensed sets, so it exists there, but not in non-licensed.
Was the first one.
Crazy. Oh, really? Oh, that's crazy. Yep. You'd have to, though, right? Of course you would.
And the next question is, who was the first blonde?
Well, you're close. In what year was the Star Wars Lego line launched?
1998.
You are, 1 year off, 99. Oh, that's so close. So close.
That hurts.
Tom, anything? No? Okay.
He's going to get 0.001.
All right.
All right. We round up.
Wow. What is the largest in brick count Lego set ever released?
Taj Mahal, 5,920 some.
You are insane. That is exactly the right answer, and it's 5,922.
Oh, so close.
Good Lord. I'm
With
kind
the
of
Rain Man Lego.
Yeah,
He gets
no doubt.
5,922 points for that.
If I dropped a box of Legos, could you count them and then I'd take you to Vegas? Is that how that whole scene would go?
Yes, exactly.
All right. Next up, minifigure heads now have a hole in the headpiece. Why did Lego add this to the hole or to the mold? He
A
says,
hole in the headpiece.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't know this one.
Head like a hole.
Is
in
it
my
to fit the
headpiece.
hair?
you are
The headpiece.
incorrect. So kids could still breathe if one got stuck in their throat, and it started from an article. There's an article all about
Yeah,
this.
endangering kids with your answer there. You lose 5,000 points.
Oh,
Wow. Steep, grim loss there.
ow.
All right.
We don't mess around with children.
That's
Well,
right.
apparently not.
Second to last question. What gas/oil company has a contract with Lego and is featured in many Lego sets?
Oh God, I know this one. It's an English one. I don't know the name.
You can
I know the
guess.
shipping company.
You can guess
Or
if you want.
Tech or whatever.
Yeah.
but
Do you want to guess?
I have no idea.
All right. It is Shell Oil Company.
yeah.
Shell. Are they British? I didn't know that.
I could have been completely off.
Final question. In 2004,
That Shell was from Granite City, Illinois.
Man,
Is it really?
We're never going to get our Exxon Valdez set either.
oh man, never.
Looking forward to that.
They got to get a deal with Exxon. I'm sure they'd love
the
that.
otters in that set.
You got to.
They'll be able to breathe in the oil, though. They have holes in it.
The whole day.
Would they have little snap-on oil slicks they put on their backs? That's an idea. The final question. In 2004, Kjeld Kirk Christiansen, I guess, resigned as CEO. Who replaced him? Oh, good Lord.
That's not even a fair question.
It's not really, is it?
I really have no idea.
I don't
It's
either.
One of the kids, isn't it?
Well, his name is J. Gerd Vig Gunstorp.
Oh, come on.
He is the first non-family member to be CEO of Lego. So there you go. Tom, now that you've added them all up and we've seen both of them perform, how
Here
did
are
they
the
do?
final scores. With a respectable 2.75, Hammond. And finishing with 926.501, Brian.
Oh, nicely done, dude. No. Brian, you walk away the big winner, man. You don't win anything, though. You just get to hang out with us for this next segment. Are you okay with that?
That's all the.
All right.
I demand a rematch.
Well, then here it is.
The future promises even more startling things to come.
I predict Hammond will get a rematch.
Yeah, that's a good prediction. This is Forecast. Forecast used to be a show. Now it's a segment. And today's, Tom, this is you. Why don't you explain what
No,
this is?
this was not me.
Who's this?
Who put this one in?
I don't know.
This
You got to
was me.
sign your work.
Oh, sorry. This was me.
Oh, great. Tell us your prediction. What do you think?
Well, after hearing your conversations about the bros and the verse and all that kind of stuff, it made me start thinking and listening to people as I interacted with them at work and realize that the human language, the English language in particular, is devolving. And I have a feeling that within, I'd say 10 years, that it'll devolve into a verbal form of what goes for internet and text speak now. Think Firefly meets Idiocracy.
Oh, I see what you mean. So it's not so much that they're guaranteed dumb or anything like Idiocracy, but like in Firefly, there's a weird combination of cultural mixes that now have become the normal kind of weird mix of, in their case, it was kind of cowboy speak in Chinese.
Yeah, kind of think like Cajun almost, except in kind of a tech language abbreviations.
Is this stemming from like the totes jelly and the like people saying like WTF and OMG instead of like the actual words, all like
exactly.
shortening of everything?
Yeah.
Or is this like those kids at Harvard who kept saying "ol" correct for everything and then shortened it to "okay"?
I guess I didn't know that. I was just listening to people talk and realizing that I know people at work who can do an entire sentence based on initialisms and anagram or what's the other word?
Oh, initialisms and acronyms.
Acronyms. They can do it. It's just all jargon talk. And it's amazing to watch them do that. And then I realized that my kids will probably be able to do that when they're teenagers with regular conversation because of the shortening of the language.
Maybe, but I feel like I'm not totally against this as a possibility, but what I often do is end up remembering things I used to say that all my friends were saying when I was growing up. And that stuff never hung around. I mean, it kind of does now, ironically. We laugh and say, oh, it wasn't that stupid that we used to say burn all the time or whatever. But it feels like no one's going to be saying totes fat in their 30s without being ironic about it. You know what I mean? Or they're not going to go, oh, that is cray-cray. when they're an adult.
It's ever evolving, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, like, if you were to ask our parents, we said ridiculous things when we were kids,
Sure.
rad and all those other things. I'm dating
It's
myself.
all 23 skidoo and tripping the light fantastic, if you know what I mean.
Right. But because I guess that's what I mean, is that it doesn't seem like this is all that different than it would have been for us then.
We're just on the other side of it now.
Yeah, we're on the other side of it. And so there's probably going to be, I mean, there's guys in their 60s who are going, hey man, groovy. I mean, they're still talking like that. So some people will never let it go, but as a like common sort of vernacular, either I don't think you're right or I hope you're wrong. Maybe that's what
Can it be both?
I guess it can be both.
I would recommend anyone who's concerned about this to pick up The Story of English and possibly watch the PBS special of the same name. It will make you feel so much better about the English language, because English, one of its amazing properties is that we've never locked it down. We never turned it into an institutional language like the French did, and it has conquered the world because of that. There are so many variations of English right there. I mean, first of all, there's a big difference between regional dialects in the UK and the few regional dialects we have in the United States. We're actually one of the unusual parts of the planet where our English is more standardized across large regions than other places. But there are Englishes in India that are perfectly legitimate and very different in Jamaica, all over the world. And the salient feature of English that makes it so adaptable and useful is that it can encompass all of these different cultures and these different ways of speaking and talking. And so what you see when you see these jargons is English at work, sifting out, like finding new ways to express yourself to meet the current ways of living and the current experiences we have, and throwing out the chaff, the 23 skidoos and the groovy mans, and keeping the okays. Okay was total slang made up. I wasn't kidding about the Harvard thing. It was made up in the 1800s. There's controversies about where it actually really came from, but it was total slang that has not only worked its way into the United States as a perfectly normal way for presidents and judges to speak, but worldwide, everyone who speaks English uses okay. So sometimes
okay,
these
like
things end up being good.
Yeah, okay is like the most universally used word, like not just in English. Like
Yeah.
it's the most often spoken word
slang.
in any language.
Yeah.
It's slang.
It's 19th century slang.
I think a lot of this stems too from because now like Webster's feels the need to like release a press release and make a big deal every time they add new words into the dictionary. And I think people sit there and see these crazy words get added into the dictionary all the time, where either that wasn't happening or wasn't being made as big of a deal of when it happened. So we didn't care when like okay got put in there. They might have put groovy in at some point, no one would have ever known, but now it's like every year we have to announce all these crazy words that are going in, like selfie and totes and all these other crazy things.
Sure.
And we make a big deal about it and it scares people.
Yeah, but then those go away. Those tend to go like 23. Tom keeps bringing up 23 skidoo because clearly he'd like that one to make a comeback. But this may be one of my favorite forecasts we've done, because I hadn't even occurred to me that a lot of the words we're saying now, I'm guessing yeah is in there as a thing that just became a shortening that stuck, and other words like that. I mean,
hello was invented by Thomas Edison.
Oh man. One of the few things you could not argue that he didn't invent or whatever. Like
that was actually
you didn't steal that for Tesla.
Alexander Graham Bell wanted it to be ahoy, and Edison threw out hello, and hello stuck for answering the phone, and now it's something we just use as a general greeting.
Nikola Tesla wanted 9, and they said no, you're out of here, buddy. No, I love that kind of perspective on the things we. I mean, you hear a lot of stuff that's designed to scare us. I mean, this isn't that scary, but these kids today with their totes fat. Well, if you just take the long view, it's the long con, more like it. These things work themselves out. So I'm not worried now. Hammond, do you feel better about your future?
I do. It was really became aware. It was something I became hyper aware of this week. In my interactions at work and just around town, and I felt like it was something that needed to be kind of talked about.
I would buy underwear called
really
hyperwear, but that's that's a great topic. Time for feedback.
It's a topic.
Here's our feedback for the week. And by the way, I got something new to announce, something exciting. There's a phone number people can call now and leave a message for this show, and we will play your calls. It's a direct line. Leave the voicemail. Keep it short and interesting. Love to have some of your calls on the show. That number is 801-471-0462. 801-471-0462. And of course, currentgeek@gmail.com is just fine. You can send that to us as well. Here is an email from Jay Bart who says, so when does it stop being artificial intelligence and start being alternative intelligence? That's a little ominous, isn't it? But I guess that's the whole point. It's not about AI taking over. It's about AI getting so good that it becomes I, right? And then just everything's intelligent. And why do we have to just, delineate it anymore at that point?
It's like the argument between the automatic Hearthstone autoplay solo guy you do go against and data.
Right. See? Exactly. I think.
Yeah, that's the danger. Is those are the only two left, not us.
Tom, you put this link in Global Catastrophic Risks. This is the book you were talking about?
No, this is a different book.
Okay.
This relates to this conversation here because Nick Bostrom is an Oxford University professor. Oh, I think he's Oxford. It might be Cambridge, and then I'll feel really bad.
Then you're in big trouble. Jeez.
He deals in assessing existential threats. And he considers an existential threat to humanity to be something that would knock us back so far technologically we would never get back to where we are now. So it doesn't even have to wipe us all out. It just has to subjugate us, essentially. And he, along with Milan Cherkovic and Martin Rees, edited a book called Global Catastrophic Risks, where they asked experts in various disciplines to assess what could cause an existential threat to humanity out of their discipline. And there's a couple of advanced nanotechnology, general artificial intelligence chapters in here where they deal with exactly this risk, which is like, when does it become alternative intelligence? And is that a good thing? And should we even allow that? Because at the rate, I was listening to Common Sense by Dan Carlin, by the way, and he was talking about this. So this is all not just coming right out of my head. I was listening to it this afternoon. I want to give him credit for inspiring the idea. The rate at which an artificial intelligence could go from being intelligent to being more intelligent than us could be seconds, right? Once it starts iterating. Yeah. That's the rate at which computer programs work. Right, so we need to be prepared well in advance for that.
Yeah. And we all laugh and go, science fiction ideas. These are great. AI taking over. But there is a real risk in it. Not just a risk of they're going to, the traditional, like, they look like exoskeleton Terminators and they're going to shoot us now. I don't mean that. The risk is like our very infrastructure that we would be so steeped in at the point that this AI took hold could just be obliterated, not because the thing's smart enough to know it's going to kill humans, but because it just runs away with itself in some kind of wacky manner that nobody can stop or control, and then we're all dead. Like that's a real threat.
Fear is there's more the efficiency in the system that it would, because the worry is that it's put in place to create an efficient system, and the more efficient the system becomes, the less need there is for human interaction. And eventually, what it will figure out is if it gets too smart, it will try to remove any inefficiencies from the system, which ends up being the human interaction in general once it's reached a certain point.
Yeah.
And I saw, I think Elon Musk was the one that was raving about this like a week ago, and everybody was making fun of him, but there's a huge point here that because of the exponential growth of this, for all we know, there could be something out there, whether it's IBM's Watson or something of that nature, that already has the seed that could grow into that, and we just don't know it yet.
Sure.
Yeah, and Stephen Hawking has made the same warning as well. And what you described, Brian, is one of the major possibilities of risk. But the real risk is we don't know what it would do. It would get to a point where we just
because we're not smart enough.
Do something good. Yeah. It could do something bad, and it might be so much smarter than us that we wouldn't understand what it was doing, and we would react badly. We just don't know.
It could do something where we are just rendered completely irrelevant to its doing it. And the reason that's freaky is we all want it to be, they want to be like us and become anthropomorphic and have, build their armies to look like dudes and try to find their feelings a la Data or something. No, they could be a cube that never goes anywhere, that just sits in the middle of, someplace where we originally built it, and Nano builds out enough to store more data or improve speeds or do something else, but it never needs to be more than that. Like whatever its efficiency thing is, that's all it has to be, ever.
Yeah, with all the options that are available, the likelihood that it'll be some humanized thing is pretty slim.
And all these flesh bags trying to stop it, it'll just wipe us, do whatever it has to do to kill us, electrify all our floors or something. I don't know. But but it is easy to look at Musk and go, oh, come on, man, this is science fiction. What are you doing? I get why people do that. But that's
because they associate the bad robot. It's
Sure.
the whole. It's like
It's J.J.
they
Abrams' fault.
yeah, it's J.J. Abrams. It's all like Terminator style stuff. But what he's talking about is like we're just talking about a systematic deterioration of our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because it just goes off to do something else that is determined as a better use of its powers.
I didn't expect to have such smart guests on today.
And sometimes the outlook that we see in our own vision is so grim that sometimes we actually would like to give up control to something that has greater intelligence. And the minute we give up that control, we're not sure what we're giving up.
Yeah, I agree. Boy, look at that. That's a somber thought to end on, isn't it? That right there.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Quick, tell a
Everybody
fart
else
joke.
can.
Yeah, tell a fart joke fast.
It's the scary episode of Current.
That's right. I do have to say, though, one of my favorite episodes. I really enjoyed having you guys on. A couple of smarty pantses and also funny and also interesting. And you guys were great. Brian Huff, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at B_Huff, HOUGH, for those of you that can't spell it. And I'm also on the web at lostinpixelation.com.
Yeah, you still thought about that rap career where you become B Huff? And that's your name?
It's already started. You just don't know. I have a second personality that people aren't aware of.
He has an artificial intelligence.
Yes. I have an AI that writes just the illest rhymes for me. Just wait for that album to drop.
Sorry, artificial intelligence. Yeah. Or not artificial. Alternative. That's what we're going to call it.
It's like Jay-Z times 10.
Exactly. Also, Hammond, what's going on with you? Where can people find you, sir?
They can find me at JHammondC on Twitter. I host a show called Beyond the Playlist with JHammondC. Sunday, Tom Merritt and John Anelio are my guests.
Nice.
And then I do Grumpy Cast with Daryl.
That's good, because he needs an outlet, and I'm glad you've given it to him to get rid of some of that grumpy.
Actually, it was his idea. He's the one who brought me on. I just happened to be on for the ride with him.
Well, all right. It's like an afterburner. You got to let stuff go, and it's good. There you go. Do follow those guys. Thank you guys again for being here. Andrew, Tom, anything from you, sir? Anything going on?
Just the regular, TomMerritt.com. Go by, drop by, say hello.
Our next show, we should mention, will be a live episode from BlizzCon. We'll be doing that on Friday.
I reserved us our normal time. Mm-hmm. So I hope that works with your schedule.
Should be fine, yeah. I mean, it looks like we've got some wiggle room, so if we need to, we can. But I think that should be great. I expect only to be pulled in too many directions the first day and the last day. So Friday,
I imagine
actually,
Current Geek will be really the only time I have to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll never see each other the entire time otherwise. So if you're coming to BlizzCon, make it a point to say hi if you see us, and we'll be all around the place in the Hilton at the convention center and having a good time. So watch for us there. And those listening at home, you may not get the episode till Sunday when I get back, but we'll let you know how that goes. That's going to do it, I guess. What else? Andrew Allen did our theme music. Call us. Leave us a message. 801-471-0462. For real, use that number. We'll use it on the show. I'm happy to do it. It's great. Please use it. Current Geek on Twitter. Scott Johnson on Twitter. Ace to Tech for Tom on Twitter. CurrentGeek.com is the website. All our links are there. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Oh, yeah, you forgot the gavel, man.
I was moving it into the music.
Nice.
Trying something different.
I like it. Always trying something different. You guys were seriously great. Thank you so much for being on with us.
Such a good show.
Oh, no problem.
And I know
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and you probably got things to do. It's Halloween, for heaven's sake, so don't let us keep you. Go do those things, and we'll have you on again. You were both rad.
All right, and I'll be in touch after BlizzCon to get you the jail passes.
All right, sweet. Off to the jail
I'll be
go.
in touch with you after BlizzCon to get you into jail.
Hey, Brian, just so you know, I actually work there. I'm not trying to get him arrested.
Right,
Yeah. I know Scott. I know what he's up to.
Yeah, little secret stuff here and there. Have a good one. Eat lots of candy corn. We'll talk to you guys soon.